Welcome to Robert Craig's ninth in a series of virtual tastings, hosted by Elton Slone, with special guest Chris Jambois of Black Sears Vineyard. This tasting features Zinsgiving, a Black Sears Journey, with the 2015, 2016, and 2017 Howell Mountain Zinfandel from Black Sears Vineyard. We hope you enjoy the tasting. If you'd like to taste alongside Elton, these wines are available on our website. Also check video details below for links to future live virtual tastings.
All right, Brian McCarthy, Corey Rutledge, this is great. The Leahy's back in. Right on. Brad Wicker, Renee in the house. Great to see the Wickers. Oh my goodness. Frank Falcone.
Oh, your cousin is on.
Doug Dickler.
Jennifer Tobin.
Oh, the Tobins are in the house. Happy 50, Jen. Joan and Bob Brown, John Moore. This is so great. Rod and Kat. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're just going to let everybody roll in here.
There's Mary.
For a minute. And all right. Oh, Megan McCullough is on. Paul and Peggy Pettit. That's great. Peter and Susan Bussick. Okay, Steve and Brenda Curley. Oh, the Curleys. Steve McCullough. This is awesome. All right. Well, everybody that's just logging in, I just want to say welcome aboard to our Zinsgiving webinar. As usual, I think the chat function, if I did things correctly, is disabled for this because I can't handle all the chats. But Jamie Castro, who is smiling there at her home in Napa, avoiding the COVID plague, we'll be able to take all of your questions in real time and then relay it to Christopher and I for our gig. And if you're wondering who the good looking man is just below Shelley and me, that is Christopher Jambois, who married one of the great people in the wine business, Ashley Sears Jambois of Black Sears Vineyard. So he'll be our surprise special guest today. And I'm actually sitting in the middle of Black Sears Vineyard, you can see. I might be in my home in Sausalito, but that's it. All right, this is great. This is great. All right, Kristen Shyrock, Mary Watson. Man, we have a crew in here this time. This is
McCullough. Is that Todd McCullough's?
Yeah, so this is terrific. Brian Duff. Oh, Dan Eaton. Oh, my brother. Welcome aboard. What a group. Well, first of all, I have one thing to get out of the way. Peter Brusick, I just want to reach out and say to your lovely wife, Susan, a very happy birthday, fellow Scorpio. Mine's on the 13th. So welcome aboard. It's all about revenge and sex and money and water and power, right? Isn't that the Scorpio way? So the tasting order, as we give everybody 2 more minutes to log on, the tasting order today, we're going to go from young to old. So we're going to do 2017, then 2016 and 2015. And unfortunately for you guys, I didn't get my stuff together in time to do Chris's wine side by side, but so I feel badly for you because Chris and I are both tasting his wine from the Black Sears estate alongside Robert Craig wine for all 3 of the vintages. So we're going to go 17, 16, 15. We'll finish this up. Oh, this is great. Oh, Deborah Weir. Still a perfect attendance record. Your high school teachers must have loved you, Deborah. All right. Andy Nichols, God love you. Thanks for the support continually. Frank Falcone. Oh, the heirs are here. Gary and Linda, welcome aboard. Happy Thanksgiving. Jen and Craig Baldino.
Oh, Greg Larson.
Yeah, Greg Larson is here. Joan and Bob Brown. John Moore. Man, there's so many. Kathy Rubenstein, thank you very much. And Kelly Fisher. Boy, there's a lot of you guys. Hey, Tom McCullough's on here. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and kick off and just say to everybody, this is my beautiful wife, Shelley Smith. unless she doesn't get a glass of Zinfandel. She was looking pretty angry a minute ago when I was hogging it over here. But from all of us at Robert Craig, what a bitch of a year that 2020 has been. I mean, I just can't put it any other way. My God. Along with Chris, I found out that the 40 or so power poles between their vineyard and our vineyard that belong to us are $20,000 a piece. That's one of the things we found out in the last week from the fire. So if you guys could all just order 200 more kits a piece, I'll be absolutely fine after this is over. But Jamie Castro, who heads up all of our direct-to-consumer sales and hospitality at Robert Craig. Love Jamie, has been with us now for, it's been over a year, Jamie.
It has been over a year. Cheers, everybody.
So
Happy
cheers,
birthday.
Jamie. But for this webinar, we wanted to do something that wasn't going to break the bank as everybody's going into the holidays all messed up without any friends or family. And so this is really our Thanksgiving to say thanks to all of you all for helping us through this godforsaken time. And really, as it turns out, the weather has turned nice. The fires have gone away, and Shelley and I have actually been able to spend a little time out on our local hiking and cycling trail. So it's been a really nice start, and there's no better wine at Thanksgiving. To me, there's champagne and there's Beaujolais, maybe Côte d'Aron, but one of the great Thanksgiving wines in the world, way better than Pinot Noir, is Zinfandel. And there's no better Zinfandel vineyard. There is no better Zinfandel vineyard on the planet Earth, I don't think, than the Black Sears Vineyard, who is right next door to us. So over my shoulder here, whoops, I got to go that way. Over my shoulder, where you see the white replanting markers, I forgot it mirrors the screen. Hey, Ashley.
Oh, come on.
That's Ashley's child from her former marriage. You know, hey, Ashley, it's great to see you. This is Shelley. This is my wife.
Hey there.
Oh, it's so good to see you guys.
This is our son, Dashel.
Oh.
All right.
No, this is the real thing.
This is for real? Okay.
Yeah, you're on. So, bye, Ashley.
Hi.
I'm sure we'll be talking about the power and road repair here in the next days, regardless. So we're just so happy to have Chris on board with us today. He's the next generation. We started buying fruit from this tremendous vineyard and from Joyce Black and Jerry Sears, the first generation from this vineyard that moved to the mountain in 1979. And just behind me, as I was saying, beyond those plants is Larry Turley's house, and then our vineyard. And I mean, it's literally, what, 150, 200 yards from the entrance. I should have done a video of what a short space it is between our vineyards, but the soil is significantly different, and you guys have your own little microclimate here. So Chris, I'm really looking forward to tasting through these wines with you. The vineyard is biodynamic and dry farmed, and the vines, I believe, are 46 years old, 45 years old, Chris?
45. They're the same age as me, so we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. 45 years old, planted in 1975.
All right, all right. So at this point, I want everybody, I don't want to prattle on too long, to have some 17 Zin.
I'll say goodbye.
Say farewell to my girl. She has to go out and
He has
you know,
to kick me off
make
every
me some
time.
make me some dinner and get my robe fluffed up to 88 degrees exactly in the dryer.
See you, everyone.
Bye, Shelley. Yeah, so we are going to explore this vineyard and the Zinfandels, and as I was saying, there's no better Thanksgiving wine than really great Zinfandel, and we're going to talk about Black Sears. So this is when I asked Chris to send me a photograph over. This is what he sends on my iPhone. I'm like, hey Chris, we're doing this webinar. Can you send a photo? Christopher, thank you very much for that. So here we have Chris. This is his daily life there on the farm, lounging around. So this is the patriarch of the family, and this is Joyce Black. Excuse me, matriarch. Oh my
Matriarch.
God, I'm losing it. We're just getting started. But Joyce Black, unfortunately, we lost Jerry Sears, her husband, who is one of the great Renaissance men of the Napa Valley, right at the same time as Bob Craig passed away last year at this time. And so it's just such a bummer because Jerry and Bob are two of the great guys in all of the Napa Valley and one of the most knowledgeable, passionate, giving human beings on the planet Earth. And then here's a shot of the families from one generation to the next. And now Chris and Ashley are the ones that are running this program. And let me tell you, people, it ain't easy up on the top of Howell Mountain. And there's a great shot of Chris and Ashley there. Really, really wonderful. I need your photographer. I never looked that good, Chris. But,
Me neither.
and then here is this beautiful oak tree. Oh my God, that I drive by every time we enter your vineyard entrance. And man, that thing just got rocked by the fire, right? Are you going to lose that one, Chris?
I don't think so. It's salvageable. There's a couple limbs that'll have to come off. Our swing survived, but I think that's going to be with us.
Oh, man,
that tree is actually on our website as well. It's our homepage photography.
God, it's just an amazing tree. I went up there and here's the state of the road that goes to our vineyards. So it looks good up on top. You can see where the tree well down beneath the big tree ball just burned and just completely burned out the road. So with that being said, here's a shot of the soil of Chris's vineyard, and our vineyard is just to the right of this picture. You have a thin slice of Larry Turley's property and house, and then you have our vineyard, and you can see how red the soils are. You know, very high iron content basalt series soil. So I'll stop there for the time being, and just say, you know, Chris, welcome aboard. And I don't know how many of our wine club members have had your wines before, but let's get started. How long have you been associated with the Black Sears? Was it the wine first and then Ashley and the family, or have you been, did you work there before? I think I read that you started in Seattle.
Ashley and I actually met up in Seattle in 2007, and I didn't even know her parents were in the wine business. She told me her folks were psychologists, which apparently is true. They have PhDs in psychology, but it wasn't until I actually came to visit, let's see, this would have been Easter 2008, that I found out about the entire wine grape operation here. And it wasn't even when I arrived on the ranch, it was the following morning. So I grew up in Chicago, where you live in a house and you might have a yard if you're lucky. And so when I arrived at her house, I figured that was the house. And the next morning, her dad offered to come down and show us the cave and the winery and the vineyards. And at this point, I had already proposed to her. I kind of knew right away. And within the year, she and I were moving down to take over the business here. Her folks had a label back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s called Howell Mountain Vineyards, which they sold. And were looking to, you know, scale down, get out of the wine business, and had talked about selling the 420-acre ranch, which is where Ashley grew up. And neither she nor I wanted to see that happen. So we packed our things and moved down from Seattle. So we've been doing this for about 12 years now, and it was definitely a trial by fire for me. And every year is a learning experience, particularly the past few. But other than pizza delivery guy in college, I think it's probably the best job I've had. And I do everything here from host tastings to clean the toilets to drive the tractor. As the son-in-law, you know, you got to expect that you're going to be doing all the work. So that's why I'm here and she's not. But yeah, that was sort of how we ended up here.
Toilet scrubbing is a finely honed skill that a few of us have acquired up on Howell Mountain. I am one of the great toilet scrubbers of all time. So CEO
I can
part-time, toilet scrubber full-time.
It's all about the pumice stone.
Yeah. Hey, well, I wish you all, I mean, oh my God, Chris, I'm having this 17 and it's remarkable to me on your wine. So for those, it's tough to do in this damn, I've got a virtual background here because I wanted to show Black Sears Vineyard Zinfandel. I wonder if I can get this thing. Yeah, Chris can show the label. Oh, even better. So Chris can show the label. So Black Sears Estate is Chris's property. And your Zinfandel is what, $75, Chris?
It is, yeah, 75 a bottle. We do about 400 cases of it total, and it's always, we assume 100% Zinfandel. Having farmed this vineyard for 12 years, I know for a fact that a number of the vines out there are not Zinfandel. It's not very many of them, but there are a few. But we do 100% Zinfandel. From what we consider our favorite sections of the vineyard. Of course, we give Elton and Robert Craig our second favorite, but we produce a very small amount of wine and farm the rest of the vineyard, sell the rest of the fruit to our friends and fellow producers.
Yeah, it's an amazing site. And for those of you that can see, there's that big section of vineyard behind me, behind my right shoulder in this photo. You can see all the white tubes indicating replanting. And, you know, so you guys are removed a serious section of Zinfandel and are replanting to Cabernet, right? Because the Cabernet is 150 and the Zinfandel is 75. So, I mean, Howell Mountain, the economics, it's a terrible thing. I know the BBC was just up doing a piece on the disappearing Zinfandel vineyards in mountains in California. And it's like, well, this is why. I mean, here's my question to you, Chris. Why do you think it is we had so much resistance initially from our Cabernet drinkers? And I was like, oh my God, I love Zin. And if we're next door to Black Sears, I'm going to speak with Jerry. And I used to say to your pop-in-law, you know, way back in the day, like in 2005, when I first started in 2004, I'd be like, see him at the Howell Mountain Vintners and Growers. And I'd say, hey, Jerry, you know, any chance I could get 4 tons of that Zinfandel this year? And he'd say, who are you? And I'm like, I'm your neighbor, man. It's me. I'm the neighbor. And so finally, I think whatever happened with Larry Turley used to take the fruit, and he, you know, I know that he likes it super ripe, and you guys dry farm. So whatever happened, we got a nice section of the vineyard, and I just loved your father-in-law. He was just one of the sweetheart guys. So we started way back in 2006 with the wines, and it doesn't seem that, I mean, 2006 doesn't sound that long ago, but I can't believe it. It's already been 14 years that we've been producing Black Sears Vineyard Zinfandel. So when you guys started, was Pete Richmond, you know, already farming this place?
He began in 2007. Prior to that, actually, well, Joyce and Jerry used a couple other guys, but their former partner was Mike Beatty, who's another Howell Mountain pioneer, been up here forever, and also has some Zinfandel vines that are actually well over 100 years old. But they used to do their own farming, Mike's guys and Joyce and Jerry's guys, back when you could kind of do that before, you know, sort of the regulatory side of things took over and made that sort of stuff impossible. But Pete and Silverado began farming for us in 2007. It's funny, I actually Elton, before this tasting, had to drive the tractor down to the Craig and pull Nick out of your vineyard because he got the truck stuck in the mud. So it's a very collaborative, neighborly vibe up here. And like Elton said, there aren't too many of us that are still doing Zinfandel up here, which is tragic. This is probably the best place on earth to grow Zinfandel, but like Elton mentioned, the economics of the situation dictate that if you keep growing Zin up here, you're kind of stupid. Our Cabernet is just, it's king in this valley. It doesn't show any signs of going anywhere. And you know, when you can only get maybe 7,000 a ton for Zin and Cab is going for north of 15,000 a ton, it's hard. When Ashley and I arrived, Jerry had been talking about replanting the Zinfandel from the moment we got here, which we've always resisted. We think it's such a special site. The wines are incredible. You know, we have a huge following, and we did not want to do that. We eventually got to a point where we had to make a decision on it. There was talk of pulling out more than 5 acres. We talked about doing 10. We talked about doing the whole thing. And what Ashley and I could stomach, since the vineyard's so special to us, it's where we were married, we could stomach 5. So we did replant 5 acres, more Cab, some Cabernet Franc, and some Merlot, mainly for our own wine program. But we kept as much of the old 8x12 space head train vines as we could. And this is the sort of vineyard you would never see in Napa these days. People don't grow grapes like this anymore.
Yeah, it's incredible to me. And so I say to all the Cabernet lovers that question us when we began making Zinfandel along the way, it was really interesting to me. I thought, gosh, this is just one of the most complex wines ever. But I think Zinfandels from Valley Floor that get super ripe and they put them in American oak and just really work the hell out of the wines. They are just not the same as Mountain Zinfandel. You know, I think of and your vines were cuttings from, was it Hain Vineyard or Tofanelli? I can't remember.
Yeah, Audie Hain Vineyard. Yeah, considered one of Zinfandel's heritage vineyards. The whole thing was planted on old St. George rootstock, so you know, no phylloxera issues here, unlike we had with our Cabernet. And yeah, the budwood coming from that Hain Vineyard down there just again makes this such a special site. But I wish I could take some credit for the wines here, but honestly, you know, I just drive the tractor, and it's really all about the dirt, the diverse biomass we've got up here with coniferous trees and oaks and madrones and all the various wildlife we have. It's just an amazing place.
It really is. And so let's talk about these 17s, Chris. I mean, I got to tell you, as I've opened yours up, you know, 17 and 15, I think, are underrated vintages. 16 was very easy. It was after the drought. We had a great question that was sent to me via email by Megan McCullough. And she was like, what are the differences in weather between the vintages, and is Zinfandel ageable? And to the second question, I'll just say, oh my goodness, you know, our Zins, after 10 years, oh man, are they in a good spot. And to me, if you can wait 6 years after vintage date on our Zinfandel from Black Sears in particular, you really start to get that incredible perfume that the vineyard gives off. So I taste these 17s, and 17 was another, like 15, was another small berry year. There were a tremendous amount of fires all over Napa Valley, got a lot of press, but Howell Mountain was completely clear in 2017. So we had no taint issues with any of our properties because everything was harvested, you know, before the fires, and then brought up to a completely smoke-free winery. The people that got in trouble in 17 were people that, you know, were waiting to harvest on Valley Floor. And then, you know, the smoke became a problem there. But 17 is secretly a killer vintage. I love it. It's like 15 where the press isn't crazy about it. The wines were tight, but man, Chris, both of these wines are so similar to me. Now, Chris's winemaker there at Black Sears Estate is the famous Thomas Rivers Brown, who also makes Outpost, which is a neighbor on the other side of us. And Frank Dotzler's a good buddy, but you know, he got a nice payout from a French insurance company. I'm still waiting on those guys to show up. I'll be like, hey, Frenchies, come on over.
We're next, man. We're next.
Ready for you.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'll say, qu'est-ce qui se passe? Where's my money? But you know, it's so funny that the wines are so different. You know, I think of Outpost as being very, very polished wines, super ripe. And your wines, what I love about it's like the property. They have a great bit of the sauvage in them. They're just wonderful, Chris. And I got to say, our wine is, they're incredibly similar, that spice and perfume that you guys get, because you are all dry farm, correct? There's not drip hose on the property.
Correct. There is a little bit around the perimeter. None of the fruit that you guys get or us, but there are a couple spots where it's just too rocky and the roots can't get down far enough. But I will say, yeah, I mean, the wines from this site are incredibly earthy and really reflect kind of the wild nature of the terroir up here. We actually have some customers who are soil scientists, and they really geek out on this stuff. And so we became a beta testing partner for some of the stuff that they're working on in terms of tracking soil health and its influence on the vines. And as part of that process, we got to dig these big pits. So I got to, have a little fun on an excavator and dig down about 10, 12 feet. And you should have seen these guys in this hole. I mean, they were going off. They had just smiles as big as could be, talking about how we had two separate living layers of soil that were separated by a volcanic event. Because this is one of the highest sites up on the mountain, you don't get as big a discrepancy between these layers as they erode down the hill. So you're able to see a little bit of history through there, and to have these two different biomass soils that are just so unique, separated by some volcanic event that happened thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. I mean, you should have seen these guys. And the roots from these vines are going all the way through both of those layers. I mean, we saw evidence of them down throughout the pits. And to about 10 feet was as deep as I could go, but I'm not sure how much deeper they could go beyond that. And with the dry farming, when you're irrigating vines, the roots are going to sit where the water is, right? So if they're getting water at the top, they're not going to try and crash through those two layers. But with the dry farming, they have to dig to find the water. And what's beneath the two layers of looser soil is the volcanic tufa rock, which is where the water gets sequestered and where they can finally get that drink.
Yeah, I mean, the terroir expression, the site expression of this vineyard is like no other vineyard. I think of maybe, Monterroso over in the Sonoma Valley, that those guys at Bialy make a wonderful wine from there. But that's another, and maybe Geyserville, Lytton Springs from Ridge, Hain Vineyard. But this vineyard has its own signature. It has this incredible, it's almost like, it's like a cross between Burgundy and Rhone, where you have this lavender, you have all of these sort of a ground white pepper spice that is so Black Sears. I mean, you can smell it when it's fermenting at the winery. But I love it because you don't have to press this wine. You don't have to push it forward. You don't have to, drive the alcohol up and get it to where it tastes like raisins and prunes. You can just let it be, and ages absolutely beautifully. So let me cut away and do a little more. Chris, this is fascinating. I always learn as much doing this. It's terrible that I haven't seen you more as a neighbor than I have to get you on a screen virtually. But every time I come over, I know if Ashley has the baby, she's going to want to charge me more money. That's always the sign. If she brings one of the children, she's going to charge us more. So here we go. So this is a great shot of kind of the new planting. So again, our vineyard is just to the right of this picture. As you guys look out on this, God, you can see across into Pope Valley. So you're looking east now from the summit ridge of Howell Mountain in northeast Napa. So this is right on the top. Our property and Chris's property on top. And you can see this soil, this beautiful red soil type that is just very high iron content. And these vines get some purchase. Our soils and our vineyard, this is what our vineyard next door is. It is solid rock, which is why we have drip hose. All we'd be doing is throwing a bunch of those vines on the fireplace in the fire after a few months of not watering, because unfortunately they are just not willing to go anywhere. As Randy Dunn said to me, Elton, how is that windy rocking fucking place of yours up there on top? And, you know, and I'm like, well, it is windy and it's rocky, Randy, but you know, come on. Every time we flush the commode, we irrigate your vines. Because they're down below us. And then this is Candlestick, which is on the other side of you guys. And you can see there's the tufa you're talking about. It's just these big tufa boulders. And that was after Duckhorn had replanted it from the folks up there that were making brandy up there, or Madeira, or whatever the hell they were making. So it is just a rock garden as well. And you guys have this gorgeous space. I took this shot from up on top of the vineyard, Christopher, when I saw you. Was it yesterday?
Yep.
God, I tell you, COVID does weird things to you. You're locked down so much, you get outside. It's like, it seems like months ago, but this is a great shot looking back out over the vineyard. And you can see the sad fact that all of those bunches are still on those vines. Here's a great shot of these guys in the spring. I'm sure it looks like they're doing the pruning there. What's your dog's name there?
That's Lou. He's the linchpin that's really holds this whole operation together, honestly.
All right, with Lou, let's switch over to the 16. This 17 to me is tight, but I have to say I love it. Both of these wines are just statemental of the property. 17, so the weather, to be more, you know, precise for Mary, you know, 15 was kind of like a super drought year. It was the end of 5 years of drought. 16, a more relaxed year, you know, all the way through the year. The vines just really had a perfect growing season. No big heat spikes. 17, we had a big heat spike, hence, and some winds, hence the fire. And it was another kind of droughty-ish year with very, I don't know, I can't remember, Chris, from your vineyard, but from our vineyard, oh my God, the yields in 17 were so low. I just kept thinking,
Tiny. Yeah.
Is this going to continue? Because 15 was 50% down on Howell Mountain.
Yeah,
so
our yields in 17 were even smaller, actually. Not quite as bad in the Zin, but for the other stuff we grow, we were down almost 50%. And you mentioned the drought. With the Zin, we tend to really enjoy those you know, systemic drought year vintages. And 16 was definitely kind of the peak of that. 17 continued the drought, but we did have a bunch of rain early, the winter of 16 and 17 up on Howell Mountain. At our property, we had 90 inches of rain, which is pretty insane. Average up here is around 40, which is still a good bit, but 90 heading into 17 was sort of unprecedented.
And I think, frankly, that's why 18 was such a big crop, you know, for most people.
Yeah, exactly.
On Howell Mountain, it was back to normal, but we finally kind of got the water table replenished. So, you know, to answer Megan's question, the three vintages, you know, 15 is an ultra drought vintage. In 16, we got some rain in spring, and the temperatures were very moderate year round. So it was really a perfect growing vintage. But I noticed on Black Sears, man, in those drought years like this, that ground white pepper quality just really explodes in the wine.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, why don't you talk about, I mean, one of the things that you do not see in the Napa Valley is when you go to this vineyard, all of the vines look like they're a mess. If you're used to seeing these beautifully hedged vineyards like at Opus One or somewhere where they do vertical shoot positioning. Now, this is a really difficult process. We cane prune all of the vines so that we get each vine to carry the crop load that we want. And fortunately, Pete Richmond and Silverado are preeminent farmers in the Napa Valley. Their guys are tremendous. And Pete and Nick are incredible managers. I mean, Nick obviously needs to work on his driving skills in the mud with his truck. But other than that, why don't you talk about not only are you guys cane prune, but you're head trained. So why don't you talk to them about why you guys do this on these old vines?
Honestly, the head train thing, I mean, while we do love it, we actually inherited it. When Joyce and Jerry purchased the property that their house is on up here, they really didn't have much intention of getting into the wine business. And the main reason that they purchased the Zinfandel Vineyard, which at that time was, it had been abandoned, it was disease ridden, type measles, just gnarly virus out there. It took them a while to kind of revive it. And the way that they had started, Bob March is the guy who had originally planted it. And he went with a head train style. It's old school. And he did a large spacing, 8x12, which again is something you would never see in the Napa Valley, again, for economic reasons. But it really is the best way to grow Zinfandel. With Zinfandel, it's a thin skin grape. The clusters are just densely packed right on top of each other. Mildew is always a concern. Sunburn is a concern. With the head train vine, you have this big canopy that leaf-wise is protecting the grapes from the sunburn, while also allowing a really nice, even airflow through there to keep that mildew pressure down. Howell Mountain is probably the worst mildew pressure, I won't say in all the world, but probably in all of the Napa Valley and maybe in all of California. So the head train stuff, it really helps us mitigate that, because you get some mildew in there and you can kiss your wines goodbye. But pruning them is fun. Working in that vineyard is fun. Everything is three-dimensional, and there's no infrastructure. There's no wires. There's no irrigation. You can move freely throughout the vineyard. It just makes it kind of a joy to work in, and just another thing that makes the site that much more special. Pruning it is a lot of work. It takes quite a bit of time, and it needs to be done quickly. So like Elton said, Pete and Nick and the guys with Silverado are amazing. And this is them here doing that.
Yeah, I cannot tell the folks here at home enough about, what you pay for labor like this to do a head train property. And when you look at these vines, like I said, they might look like they're a mess, but you notice the fruit, every single bunch has a canopy above it to give it this gorgeous filtered light. The fruit likes dappled light and this nice airflow. On our property, we don't have to worry too much about mildew because, again, the bunches are so freaking loose and few and far between. There's hardly anything to mildew, but this is a true art and very difficult to do. If you're on a similar, sort of classic spacing, 7x12 or whatever, for a mountain vineyard, and you have 1,200 vines an acre, the people that cordon prune where the vines go out into a Y, you're giving one haircut for all of the acres. And this is giving every single vine an individual haircut. So it's very time consuming and expensive and requires a very specialized labor force. So I'm rocking into the 16 wines now. Let me pour myself a little bit.
Elton, we have a couple of questions. Can I share a couple with you guys?
Please do.
Okay, super. So I'm actually, Kelly Fisher asked her question last, but while it's still fresh on everybody's mind, I thought we would address this one first. And this one's for you, Chris. She wants to know, what exactly does it mean when you refer to an 8x12?
Okay, those are just the spacing of the rows. So the actual lane that you're able to walk down is 12 feet wide, and the distance from one vine to the next within that row is 8 feet. So it's quite a bit wider than really anything else you would see in the Napa Valley.
Yeah, perfect. And in France, if you think about it, a lot of people in Rhone and Bordeaux, Burgundy, they do meter, it's meter par meter. It's 1 meter by 1 meter. So that's much more intense planning. And I think, so an acre, you guys probably have it's about, is it around 900 vines an acre or something like that? Chris, do you have any idea?
Let's see. Yeah, it's actually fewer than that even.
Yeah.
It's probably more like 600 to 700.
Yeah, I mean, we have some very wide spaced rows. To give you an idea, like on the Affinity Vineyard, we have 1,190 vines on an acre over there in Coombsville, and those are very wide rows. I mean, we even discussed interplanting those. And then on Howell Mountain, the new planting, we have places where you have almost 3,000 vines an acre on Candlestick on some of the new sections. So that's why this is such precious juice, folks. What's the other question, Jamie?
Sure. So another question that has come up. Well, first of all, Joy wants to wish you a happy belated birthday. So we had to share that.
Oh, thank you.
But and you started to touch on this, Elton, but I didn't know if maybe you or Chris would like to elaborate. But Greg Larson had asked if you could explain how mountain fruit for Zinfandel is different in flavor than Zinfandel fruit that is grown on the valley floor.
I'll let Chris handle that, and then I can say something about it too, maybe.
Fabulous. And we have lots more whenever you're ready for them.
So, I mean, Zinfandel is probably the most diverse grape around. I mean, regardless of where it's grown, you see all sorts of different styles. But some of the things that correlate strongly to mountain fruit is particularly Howell Mountain. You get a much brighter acidity. The wines have more structure. They're, for lack of a better word, more complex. There's just more going on in there. Not to say that every Valley Floor Zin is going to be one dimensional or anything, but I get people up, like I said, that, I host tastings up here too. And I get people up here all the time that, they've come to Napa for the cab. They don't even want to taste the Zin. I sometimes have to twist their arm. And, at the end of it, most of them are saying, this is the best wine, one of the best wines I've ever had. I can't believe this is a Zinfandel. So there's definitely some differences between mountain and valley floor. They're not always completely correlated, but the things that jump out to me initially are just the spice component, a little bit bigger tannin, and that brighter acidity. The wines are just sunny. They make you happy, for lack of a better term. So I don't know if that answers your question. So, some things you have to just taste.
Chris, you're being way too polite. Valley Floor Zin suck. They are overstated.
Well,
hey, unless you're talking again, Hain or Tofanelli or some great site, but to me, what mountain vineyards have is that incredible Zinfandel and that incredible, acidity to them. They have that backbone and that intensity. The lower yield, you get this expression of sight. The wines are not overwrought or overripe. And so, to me, it being cooler, 12 degrees cooler every day on the top of Howell Mountain than it is on Valley Floor. And in particular with climate change, I think there are fewer and fewer places that can ripen comfortably a thin-skinned grape like Zinfandel. I don't think people can understand just how delicate Zinfandel is until you come and hold the bunch right at harvest time in your hands before it goes into the destemmer. Because of the fact that, I don't know if you guys do any with the stems, whole berry, but we do. We send it all through the destemmer. And the skins are so delicate, it is really a labor of love to produce Zinfandel because it is a pain in the ass. It makes growing Pinot Noir look like nothing. And to do it in the mountains means you're also going to get rain where there's already mildew pressure. And if you have one bunch of grapes in 1,000, you cannot use those bunches. If that one bunch goes into the 1,000 with powdery mildew, that's it for the whole lot. So when they're farming organically and dry farmed like these guys are, you don't have all the tools in the tool shed to go and attack whatever pest. So, I hope you guys understand just what a special thing that Chris and Ashley and the guys at Silverado Farming and his parents, his in-laws before him were doing and continue to do. It's really unheard of to take that kind of risk and expense in Napa Valley. So to me, it's about the acidity and the site expression and that intensity on mountain versus valley floor.
Absolutely. Pinot kind of gets all of the press as the artist's grape, and it's so temperamental and hard to make. And I'll tell you that Zinfandel is every bit as difficult. And to make a Zin from a site like this that year after year not only expresses the site and the vintage, but is of this level of quality, it's truly a labor of love, and it takes every bit as much artistry and character and tenacity as Pinot does. So it's kind of tragic that Zin, it can have the reputation as the redheaded stepchild. People will pay $400 for a bottle of Cab that's kind of mediocre, and you want to get $75 for a bottle of Zin, and people go through well, I'm not going to pay that for Zin. I can get a Pinot for $120, and it's just ridiculous. But like Elton's saying, like the mountain grown fruit, that bright acidity, the structure, the complexity, you just don't see that many places. And I wish the economics of Napa allowed more Howell Mountain producers to do Zinfandel. There used to be so much more of it up here. Most of it's gone to Cab. Not that I don't love Cabernet too. I mean, we grow Cab too, but I think Zinfandel is treated a little bit unfairly.
That's right. I just think it's a tremendous buy for getting one of the most world-class wines in the world. So we're getting to that time. Jamie, do we have another question that we can hit before we move on to the 15 Zinfandel, the ultimate expression?
We do actually. We have maybe a quick one that we could touch on is Maggistoria is saying, how do we combat mildew? What do we do?
Sulfur, unfortunately, mainly. Our biodynamic practices mitigate it somewhat. We use a number of plants and teas that are made from silicate-rich material, a plant called equisetum, it's commonly known as horsetail, as well as actual silicates, which are rich in the wine up here. And silicates are, they're kind of little super tiny pieces of glass, basically, but mildew does not like silicates. So that's one way that we go about mitigating it. But, if it gets a hold, you got to go with sulfur or, antifungals. And, those are things that we don't use lightly. The things that have been used to preserve wine for centuries and are a natural part of winemaking. But we do try to mitigate those factors with a more sort of naturally occurring teas and plants rather than the sulfur.
Yeah, there's some new stuff too that Phil Couturier is using on her Vitar vineyard that we're going to take other places, because I do not like sulfur either. You have to use it very early in the growing progression at the right time, because if you use it late, anywhere around harvest, it's going to mute the flavors of your wine. And you can tell that these flavors on these wines are far from mute. I mean, these 16s, man, are amazing, Chris. I feel like they're both trying to decide what they want to be. I feel like the 17 has the generosity of youth, and the 15, from just tasting it a minute ago, we're going to finish up there right now, but the 15s are really starting to open up and go full throttle. And I think the 16s, it might be the best vintage of all three, but I kind of feel like the wine, it needs a whip and a chair or something right now. I mean, both of these
I completely agree. It's like it hasn't decided exactly what it wants to be. And it may take a couple more years before it decides. I mean, I can relate, as a dilettante and having had multiple careers and floundered about it in life from time to time. I feel like that's what that 16 vintage is, but you know, maybe one day it will end up up here on Howell Mountain farming like I have. So yeah, we'll see. They're all, to me, that's what's fun about wine is the vintage variation. You know, how one site that's only a few hundred yards away from another can be so completely different. It just, you know, that's what's fun to me.
These wines, I mean, they're just amazing. And Chris, you know, to that end, I think like the 16 wine, I see that photo of you in the robe, and I think it could go either way. Either you're going to be naked in a few minutes, or you're going to put on a suit and go somewhere important, you know. Well, let's move on. I'm going to share screen again. This is so much fun rapping with you here, man. I'm going to go to share screen and show a few more shots of the ecosystem of this. So, you know, I've gone through, you know, we've gone kind of through what pruning looks like in the spring. It's just so gorgeous on this mountain. And then this is kind of summertime in full flight. And this is getting toward harvest. And this is Shelley and our friend Danielle Price, who owns Maison de Prix wines, which are hard to get wines. Shelley here is in the foreground. And, you know, if the dogs don't run us off every time we go through on the way back from Candlestick, we eat some of these Zinfandel berries because they're so freaking delicious at the time of harvest. And look, I mean, just look at this vineyard and the beauty of it. And then this was taken yesterday, these beautiful old vines. And it's just such a sad sight to see all the fruit still on the vines, wrecked by smoke. And is what you told me correct, Chris? You guys lost 40% of your vineyard this year in the fire. Is that right?
We did. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you sit, most of our Zinfandel survived. I mean, it's another, there's something magical about this Zin vineyard. I don't really know what it is, but it survived, and pretty much all of our losses were Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and about 15 to 20% of our replanted stuff. But it's almost like there was a protective bubble or aura around this Zin vineyard. We had already made the decision not to harvest anything after the lightning fires back in August. We're learning about this smoke taint thing, and you know, we faced it in 2018 with fires that were a couple hundred miles away. So we knew, based on our micro fermentations and grape sampling going in, that we were not going to be harvesting these grapes as early as September. But when the fire actually hit in early October, it devastated quite a bit of our vineyard. But like I said, the Zinfandel has made it.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, we got lucky that I ran the stress levels way too high on a bunch of our Candlestick stuff. Then we got that big heat event, and we started to lose the grapes. So I had to bring it in, and it saved us from smoke taint. So we got about 30% of our Howell Mountain crop, 0 spring, 0 diamond, 0 Mount Veeder. What a year. But look how beautiful this is in the wintertime up on Howell Mountain. And I think of you guys that only think about coming to Napa in the summertime. As Jamie can tell you and Chris can tell you, this place, it's just magic looking out over the Pope Valley. You can see all the way to the Sierras on a clear day. This is a great shot. We get snow 2 to 3 times a year up on Howell Mountain because we are over 2,000 feet up there. It's just an incredible spot. And here's a really good, I love this shot, Chris, that you put in my Dropbox of this typical bunch of Zinfandel grapes. It's never going to be perfect, which is why we use an optical sorter, because you don't use water. It's all dry farmed. And so it's not like you're going to plump it up, but what a gorgeous shot of what Mother Nature gives you, that fruit hanging in the dappled light there. Here's the little winery where the folks on our old Pimray vineyard, the Combs, Thomas and Jean-Michel, used to make the wine, and you just let me know that is no more. There'll be some new people in there. I don't know if they're still going to make it.
Well, it will actually still be them. Tomas, however, has he up and left them hanging about 3 weeks before harvest began. And I've come to learn that Jean-Michel is no longer the winemaker at Ponte Canet over in Bordeaux either. I'm not sure what happened with them. It's kind of a weird situation.
I guess you don't drink too much before you go to dinner with the Tesserons, right?
Maybe not, yeah.
But you can see that you know, the Black Sears Estate Winery is, what I love about it is it's all these small tanks to do small lot fermentations. It's everything you need to make world-class wine and nothing you don't. Super cool. Here is one of our best friends, one of the house cleaners there on your vineyard. I love it. It's not a bad place to go, as we say. That's just terrible. But it's this ecosystem. And I loved your photographs, because I always show people photos from our game camera, but this is what's on Black Sears. Ashley is now trying to blame me and my electric fence for driving the bears over to your place, Chris. But I think it's just you guys, you know, leaving too much fruit on the vine.
They love Zinfandel, you know, they got a sweet tooth and they're gearing up for torpor and they're out there digging the Zin.
It's amazing. They start in our vineyard and they eat the Merlot and they eat the Merlot first. They basically follow the ripening curve of the vineyard around our vineyard. And let me tell you, those things can do some damage, but I love the fact you have this great shot of the bobcat tooling around in the vineyard. For those of you, I mean, all of us, the fires are devastating to us humans, but for these animals, it's a very rare habitat to have this large habitat for these big, you know, carnivorous species. So this is where your wine ends up, Christopher, and all in French oak at the Craig. That's a great shot. We don't do the barrels. We don't paint them all pretty because that's just extra labor that I'd have to pay for. But all of these are about $1,200 to $1,500 a piece. We use all French oak for our Zinfandel, and that's it. So let's roll into the 15. And what are your thoughts on this 15? As I pour myself.
For me, the 15, at least for ours, I'm going to taste yours right now. Is my favorite of the three. It's just classic Howell Mountain, classic Black Sears, a lot of black and white pepper, spicy, coniferous trees, brambly, and we don't know what to call it. We always call it Zinberry, but it's just this classic Zinfandel fruit flavor throughout. And to me, that it's my favorite of the three.
Mine too. I think right now, I don't know, the 16 and 17 may eclipse it in time, but the 15 from both of these properties to me are my favorite wines. They are so powerful from those small berries, that super low yield. And what do you think, Jamie? Do you have all three there?
I do, Elton, and I love the 15. I mean, I agree with Chris as far as the berry flavor on this one is just so intense, and it's hard to actually give it a name. I like the Zinberry. I'm going to go with that one. But I love it. It's still got plenty of structure and lots of layers of flavor, but I don't know, that nose really draws you in here too.
I mean, both of these wines have this great fullness on the middle palate. They're not just alcoholic and disappear down the center. So I absolutely, I mean, Chris, this is so cool to drink these wines side by side. I've never done this. You'd think as neighbors who both like to drink wine that we would do this more often. So I'm glad we can do it, because this 15 just has this presence to it. And I think if you're a Cabernet lover, if you're a Burgundy lover, if you're a Barolo lover, whatever, you have to, and in particular, Rhone, you have to take a look at this wine and say, for the presence, the complexity, the age-worthiness of the wine. And I think about having a plate of turkey with some really good gravy and stuffing and cranberry on the side. I mean, come on, how are you gonna defeat this wine in that setting for red wine? No way, you know. And the one thing we've never done is make magnums of Zinfandel, which I'm deep in regret about. But for all of you guys in Craigland,
We do. We do.
you guys make mags? Well, for all of you guys in Craigland, we have very
We do.
little,
Yeah. Not many.
and we're not going to get much more. I mean, Ashley, you know, when every year she comes to give me the bad news, like I said, she's always with the baby, and it's like, hey, we're replanting this. You guys are not going to get much more. So we've gone from producing about 500 cases a year of this tremendous Zinfandel to producing about 150 cases a year. And it's a real shame. So it's going to be winery only. And unfortunately, you know, when you see your emails, respond quickly because it's going to go. This is one of the last great wines on the planet Earth. And Chris, what a pleasure. I'm impressed that you're, I mean, how is it raising a family literally in the middle of nowhere?
You know, it can be interesting at times, but you know, the ranch up here is 420 acres of space for kids to play on. Their grandma lives on site. Their preschool teacher lives on site. And we have some family friends who've been living up here on the ranch with us for over 30 years. And Maureen and John. Maureen actually runs the St. Helena Co-op preschool. So for them, you know, it's an ideal place to live. They, you know, I'm from Chicago. When they go and visit Uncle Steve, they wonder why we don't have an elevator in our house. You know, so there are certain things that maybe they think stinks about it, but they don't have anything to compare it to really. But it's an amazing place for them to grow up. And that's a big part of why we even wanted to be here, is that we, you know, while we're passionate about wine, we're even more passionate about our family, and to be able to have them grow up here in this natural environment with their family is incredible. I will say, you know, going to the grocery store is a pain in the ass. You know, it's like 30 minutes each way, but it's a small price to pay, I think.
Hey, going to the grocery store is a break from all the toilet scrubbing, right? Well, so
Absolutely, absolutely.
I have to plug you because we have all these Kraegers on that have Zinfandel that features your estate name on it. If somebody wants to reach out and join your mailing list, we're going to provide a link in the follow-up email that we send everyone. Are you going to do anything for my Kraegers that come aboard and order some vino for you? Order some vino from you?
Absolutely, yeah. Maybe you come to the website. If you'd like to order any Zin, we'll knock 15% off, and we'll do a free shipping for 3 or more bottles, just for this event only. And maybe just mention Robert Craig or Elton or Jamie or whoever you happen to be most familiar with, and we will take care of you.
That's what I like to hear. Our Kraegers know a good buy, hence they're buying our wine instead of Screaming Eagle, right? Well, to everybody out there, I think, Chris, this has just been a really, really good time. I just absolutely love having you and Ashley for neighbors, and up on top, the fruit that you give us, man, it is, I feel like we're just stewards of the land for this little while. And it's such a special piece of property, and all 3 of these wines are just blowing my mind. So I have a feeling that I'm going to wake up with a hangover tomorrow. I'm trying to dim it down a little bit, but it's been a hell of a week, and just great to speak to you. We'll send a link to your website. So give Chris the heads up that it involves Robert Craig, and they'll bro you. And to all of our Craig family, to all of the people that have been coming on and supporting us. It's not always the most organized hour of wine TV, but it's a lot of fun, and we love you. We want you to have a tremendous Thanksgiving. From the 8 of us here at Robert Craig Winery, we're thinking about everyone, and we want you to all just survive this virus, get through the other side. Hopefully we'll all have a Band-Aid on our arm here pretty soon, and be able to go about our lives as usual. But in the meantime, we've got love, we got wine, and really happiest holidays and gatherings from us here at Craig. Thanks so much, everyone. Anything to add, Chris?
No, I mean, happy Thanksgiving. Let's keep moving forward, and we'll get this stuff done. I mean, 2020 is going to be behind us in no time, and hopefully this will all just be a collection of stories that we tell our kids and family later on. So cheers. Thanks you guys for all for coming and putting up with Elton and, you know, My Ugly Mug and listening to what we have to say. And we hope you like the wines and maybe come visit sometime.
Thank you. And Jamie, did we leave anything unanswered that we should get to, or should we just say farewell?
We've got a couple of other questions, but I was thinking I can just forward those to you via email, and we can touch on those after. I know you like to try to be succinct.
I know it gets boring after an hour. It gets really boring. So
we don't want to lose people.
By email, and hello to the Grays and Jason Guerrero and your gang from Kansas City as well. Love all you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. And thanks a lot, Chris, for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This was way more fun than I even thought it was going to be. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Good times. Cheers,
everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
Take care.